JBN, we keep you informed. Jamaica's Most Wanted, Episode 9, St0ne Crusher Gang. Despite being advertised overseas as a friendly city on the ground, Montego Bay St. James has fast become a killing field where the joys of sea, sand, and sun are steadily being replaced by the murderous rampage of gangsters. Montego Bay has become a notorious black spot for law enforcement, registering in excess of 100 murders every year since 2002 as gangsters, operating mostly out of the city's 19 unplanned communities, regularly leave death and destruction in their wake. While gangsters like One Order out of Flankers, Killer Bees, Granville, Miguel Jarrett, Flower Hill, Tight Pants, North Gully, and Piranha Bottom Pen have all left bloody imprints on the city over the years in terms of sheer ruthlessness and brutality. The Norwood-based St0ne Crusher gang has been the deadliest of all. Prior to the name St0ne Crusher, a group of young people, mostly men and a few women, in their early 20s living in a community called Hendon Norwood in northwest St. James, took on the moniker Renegades. In those formative years, the Renegades' nemesis was another group of young people who hailed from a neighboring community called the Bottom Pen, also located in Norwood, who called themselves Piranha. The Renegades and Piranha were always engaging in street battles. The deaths of some of the founders at the hands of the police, fellow gangsters, incarceration for various crimes, and others migrating to the U.S. allowed for younger renegades and admirers to become keepers of the legacy. These younger renegades, steeped in violence, having witnessed it all around them, decided that the name Renegade was too passive and rebranded themselves St0ne Crusher. This rebranding led to an era of unprecedented lawlessness, as cold-blooded murder, which included the beheading of victims, became their trademark. "The youth them born come see them relatives getting murdered in gang war," said a former gangster. "So what is happening today is most reprisal. At the same war from back in the days, the only thing is that more youth have gone. Because they operate like community protectors, and in some instances like Robin Hoods, sharing the proceeds of robbery with the community, the St0ne Crushers are at times revered by those around them, who see them as a necessity, especially in times of trouble. Police don't care about inner city people, so we have to deal with the thing on we own," a female member of the community said. "If we don't defend ourselves, people will come and walk over us." The St0ne Crusher gang became engaged in extortion. Their main targets were scammers who they extort and robbed at gunpoint, and this they did without coming onto the police's radar. And so their source of income became extortion and robbing scammers. Some scammers, however, started to resist by carrying their own weapons to fend off the attacks. This angered the gang, and thus they wanted to instill fear by not only killing their victims, but by decapitating them and exhibiting their head for all to see. In this violent melting cauldron, some scammers, realizing the futility of resistance, can't beat them, joined them, turned to hiring St0ne Crushers as bodyguards, merely to provide muscle in feuds they were involved in with other scammers. These operations allowed the gang to build up its coffers, which manifested itself in accessing weapons of higher caliber types and more sophisticated handgun models, and mobility, which was in the form of high-end, expensive cars. Scammers, however, were reluctant to report crime committed against them to the police because they couldn't legally account for large sums of cash, and they were also in fear of being scammed by corrupt police officers. Where such corrupt officers existed, they had many openings. They could join up with the St0ne Crushers. They could provide protection to scammers. They could even organize their own mercenary band or any combination thereof. All this under the cloak that their organization, the police force, unwittingly provided. Access to guns and ammunition, mobility, readily able to identify themselves as lawmen even while engaged in illegal activities. On a few occasions, the St. James police found themselves in embarrassing situations as a result of the ties between corrupt policemen and the Crushers. In one such instance, a marked police vest, which had not been reported missing, was found among the cache of guns and ammunition seized during a raid on a St0ne Crusher hideout. 1 month later, as investigations continued, A policewoman to whom the vest was reportedly assigned was removed from frontline duties. It went even further, where during one particular period, 2 policemen, allegedly involved in carrying out murders and arson at the behest, or as members of the Stone Crushers, were declared among St. James' most wanted. The 2 men, who resided in the heart of Stone Crusher territory, subsequently turned themselves into the police and were processed and released. Between 2001 and 2006, the Stone Crusher gang reached the peak of its dubious power, turning out several notorious leaders who at different times became most wanted, both in St. James and nationally. This list includes Delano Bigger Crime Williams, arguably the most brutal member of the gang, Michael Lassie Forbes, Eldon Calvert, Cedric Doggy Murray, and Rowan Don Gordon. Because they operated mostly out of the informal communities, which feature rugged terrain, dilapidated roads, few street lights, and a culture of silence among residents, the gangsters were able to elude the police whenever they were targeted in raids. In 2005, a man's head was found on a stool, surrounded by burning candles, not in the middle of nowhere, but right in the middle of a Norwood road. Not but a short time thereafter, another man was beheaded, and his head exhibited in front of all the places, a police post in downtown Montego Bay. On March 5, 2008, a partially decomposed body of a male was found in a suitcase under the cellar of an abandoned house. The person's hands and feet were bound, and a plastic bag was used to cover the head. According to the CCN liaison officer at the time for the St. James Police Division, Corporal Camille Tracy, the unidentified partially decomposed body of a male, estimated to be between the ages of 15 and 19 years old, barefooted, clad in a grey merino and a pair of black short jeans, was found in a suitcase under the cellar of an abandoned house in the Hendon Norwood community at about 9 a.m. Its hands were bound and a plastic bag covered its head. These gory exhibits became quickly forgotten as triple and double killings became regular occurrences, most times than not, members of the same family ending up as multiple victims. 2 brothers here, 2 brothers and one or both of their wives or girlfriends, a common law wife and her husband, a father and son, a father and daughter, aunties and uncles, the whole gamut, several family members and our neighbors gunned down at the same time. According to the Jamaica Gleaner, like cowboys of the Wild Wild West, gunmen carrying 9mm weapons sprayed patrons at a party on Perry Street, downtown Montego Bay, on the morning of Saturday, April 30, 2009, leaving 3 dead and 3 nursing gunshot wounds. 2 hours later, a building contractor became the 4th victim when gunmen shot him in a drive-by shooting at his gate on Thompson Street close to the first incident. The dead are 25-year-old fisherman Creston Frisco Brown, 27-year-old car wash operator Trevon Parry Chambers of Cyril Gully, and the 17-year-old Kyles Tucker, a former student of Homo Technical High School and of Perry Street. The 4th man, 47-year-old Keith Miller, was shot while exercising at his gate, eyewitnesses say. This is the 5th murder to hit downtown Montego Bay in 3 days, breaking the relative calm since the start of the year. At the party, reports are that about 3:45 a.m., 5 men in a white Toyota RAV4 and a silver Toyota Corolla motor car invaded a party that was in full swing at Perry Street. The men alighted from the vehicle, went directly to the 3 men, opened fire, hitting them all over their bodies. While making their escape, the men fired wildly, hitting 3 other patrons who have since been admitted to the hospital. Crusher is not a gang, it is a community. Each time the police kill a member, they claim that they killed the Don. But the Don is always here because there's always somebody ready to take over. The dominant members of the Stone Crusher gang that drove fears in the minds of Montegonians were Delano Bigger Crime Williams, the Stone Crusher murder practitioner or enforcer, Michael Lassie Forbes, Rowan Don Gordon, Damian Vassell, Richard Richie Black's Lawn, Cedric Doggy Murray, Robert Bobo Harding, and Eldon Calvert. Stay tuned as we give you a breakdown of each of these notorious criminals. JBN, we keep you informed. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell as we give you our daily updates, uploads, whatever.